So, Ollie, thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. You were a guest, episode 9 and 10, back in the early days. You were actually the first proper guest, because my first guest in person was my fiance. So I guess
Right.
I can count her. But you were the first proper guest, and we had a really great chat. So I thought what we could do is speak about 2020, what's happened financially, what are the highs, what are the lows, and looking into 2021, what we can expect, what we can learn, what we want to try. So, looking back in 2020, were there any financial lessons learned at all?
I think the biggest one, and I would be surprised if other people don't give you the same answer, is the importance of an emergency fund.
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone's got that on their learning list.
I mean, however you say it, rainy day fund, grandma's rainy day fund, emergency fund, whatever it is, I think everybody understood the value this year of having, however much, but an amount of money saved up, so that if it hits the fan, you've got a reserve that you can rely on without having to rely on credit cards or even borrowing from family and friends and things like that. Because if we can avoid that at all costs, I think that's the best way to go. So yeah, the emergency fund came in incredibly useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know the weird thing that I found about 2020 is thinking about an emergency fund. I always thought that fund would be an emergency, like just for myself, just for my personal circumstances. I never expected for everyone else to be plunged into an emergency at exactly the same time. So that's been like a really unique thing to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I forget who said it now. I think it was Warren Buffett. But I love the saying that you can tell who's skinny dipping when the tide goes out. You
Right?
know,
Yeah.
and I think this whole COVID crisis just caused everybody to really sit back and assess, like, well, maybe not everybody, maybe everybody should have, but perhaps there are still people that aren't thinking about these things. How am I set up financially? Have I got access to liquid cash? Because you might have a lot of money in investments that you shouldn't, it would be a bad time to cash out, because, like I think you've said before, when the stock market dips a bit, that's an excellent time to buy.
Yeah, that's
You know?
right. But I had great plans to keep investing and keep investing at a very high rate. And you're right, kind of, COVID came along and has changed everything, and that was a real lesson for me. Is you definitely need that liquid cash on hand. As great as investing is, cold hard cash in the hand, you can't beat it, and you always need that. Whether whatever the circumstances. So that was a huge takeaway for me, finding that sweet spot, isn't it, of having enough cash stored away that you feel comfortable, but also maximizing the rest of your opportunities. So finding that balance is kind of tricky, and I think it depends on every person's kind of situation. So for yourself, you're in a more kind of stable or steady job than for me, so maybe I have to have more cash reserves than you do. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, talking about stability, my job is relatively stable, but again, it wasn't until the whole country got thrust into a lockdown, and at the beginning of this year, we're a family-run business. We had to close for the full 15 weeks. So
That's
generally, we'd think that we did have a stable job, but that closure, that out of the blue, it was, fortunately, again, our business had an emergency fund saved up so that we could afford to keep the family afloat. But yeah, I don't know. I've started to think now you can't have too much money saved up. I'd like a little bit more for sure.
Yeah. It does make you feel that it's good to have some cash to the side to kind of weather the storm. And
Definitely.
but it's also sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, were you able to actually do the purchasing of more stocks and shares when the stock market dipped? Did you go ahead with that? Because I'll admit, I kept my cash. I didn't take advantage of that. I thought it was, for me personally, more important to keep that cash on hand.
Yeah. So I mean, call it fortunate or not. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but one of the last contracts that I did was one of my most lucrative ones of my career, but it was also times that the rest of my diary kind of got wiped out, but I didn't really know that at the time. So the way I try to think about my investing, and particularly with my pension, is that it's automated, so it just goes off every month and there's a direct debit, and I think that does take a lot of the emotion out of it for me. So it doesn't matter if the market's at a high or at a low, it just goes out. And there's a really cool feature on the Vanguard website, actually, where it displays the graph and it shows a little dot of where you've invested. And that was really fascinating for me to see, all of that variance, particularly when it was so volatile, to see, it was a bit up there and it was right down there. And it was a reminder for me that just... there's always going to be market noise and things to be scared about. And I mean, the market has recovered incredibly, much more quickly than what I thought. But I felt it, man. I really felt it. I can remember having a conversation with my brother. I was like, I'm down like 20%. And it bothers you. Of course it does. It's not nice. It's not a nice feeling. And it's really counterproductive. Like it goes against everything that to kind of sit by and just let all of that money that you've worked really hard for, just to let it dip. But there was this guy J.L. Collins. He's written a fantastic book, The Simple Path to Wealth, and he was saying something like, the reason that you get all of those gains is that you take on that risk. So you have to be able to accept that it's going to tank. And what that means is when it does tank, that gives the market the opportunity to rise and gives you the opportunity to grow your wealth. So risk it's part and parcel. You have to learn to accept it and expect it.
Yeah, again, I always love a quote. Again, I can't attribute it to anybody because I don't remember who said it, but the only people who get hurt on a roller coaster are the ones who jump off. If you'd sold all of your assets at the bottom of that, then you've really lost. But like you said, stick with it, stay consistent, manage your levels of risk and I suppose your emotions as well when the risks present themselves. And ride it back up.
Because it always feels like, it's a unique situation. Corona is like an unprecedented situation. The stock market has tanked and it was so encouraging. Like in those periods, I listen to all the podcasts that talk about what to do when the market tanks, and they all say, do not sell, just don't panic. And it's fascinating because it just goes against everything we know. But this guy, J.L. Collins, he said that I think it was in the 70s or 80s. I think it was the 80s. It's a big market crash, and he sold right at the bottom. And as soon as he did, the market bounced right back, and he was like, no. And he said he never made that mistake again. He always stayed in the market. So
that's good.
I'm trying my best to...
mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to learn from other people's mistakes. And But that my next question was did you meet the targets and goals that you've set for yourself in 2020?
So, broadly, yes, I would say. Mainly because my only overarching goal was to have more at the end of the year than I did at the beginning. So I have been able to save consistently. It's been going into... I still use my money box lifetime ISA for the most part.
Classic.
And I've got a money box stocks and shares. I need to branch out a bit, I think. I've seen you talk a lot about Fidelity, but I still haven't opened an account with them yet. So I
use Vanguard actually, yeah. But,
okay.
But I mean, I branched out from Moneybox to Vanguard just when I felt like I had a bit more knowledge about what was going on, and also learning about the fees as well. That was an important one. Yeah. And for myself, I mean, I don't want to step on your toes because I just asked you this question, but whilst I remember my answer, the biggest lesson that I learned in 2020 is fees are are huge. And I worked out, so I had some of my wealth with a financial advisor, and I worked out that his fees, if I left that money to be invested in the market and left it there until 65, it would cost me in the region of £600,000 just for his fees alone. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, like these, it might sound like a small percentage, but that adds up. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've learned a lot about finances this year, a lot about investing, and fees really matter. And I think Moneybox is a great app because it's the introduction for people that are just looking to start, and it is fairly low cost. But as you start to learn more, I think there are other options, and certainly for yourself, you have a lot of knowledge. So maybe, you know, playing around with something like Vanguard or some of the other providers that could save you a bit of cost and help grow your wealth a bit more, I guess.
Yeah, I think I answered one of your Instagram questions the other day about are you too afraid to invest? And no, I'm not afraid, but I do think that I could definitely stand to learn a little bit more. I think that's what's stopping me at the moment is, you know, from sort of branching out and doing something by myself. I do like the simplicity of Moneybox. They take the money, I can see where it's going. And like I said at the beginning of this answer, I am in a better position now than I was at the beginning of the year.
Definitely.
But I think 2021 might be the time when I do a little bit more reading, get a bit more knowledge, and maybe have a little bit of a play around with.
Have a little bit of play. I mean, I would fundamentally say that actually what I do in Vanguard is more simple than what I did in Moneybox. So I practically have one fund that I invest in, and it invests in nearly 7,000 companies.
Right.
And it's just a tracker fund, and it tracks the world, and it's performed quite well, at least since I've had it. Now, interestingly, I know you can't really compare rates of returns when you've invested at different times and stuff, but there's one other robo app that I kind of dabbled with. This is a Welsh company actually called Wealthify, and it's quite similar to Moneybox. And I put in just £100, and I just wanted to see, like, you know, how it works and what it's like for the consumer and stuff. And really cool app, but during the pandemic, they said, it's kind of automated. So they said, we're making some changes to your portfolio. And I think they got a bit, you know, freaked out about the pandemic. And I looked just last week at what the return was, and it just hit 10%. And I think if you look at that, you'd think, oh, okay, you know, it's been a turbulent year, 10%, not bad. But Vanguard is like, it's reached 38%. So that's a big disparity there. And I think that goes to show, it's not a fair comparison because it's different market times and stuff, but I feel much more in control with Vanguard. Those low fees, good performance, and it's just a tick for me, I think.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So how would you, if you got that on your mind for 2021, what's your kind of starting point? Will you listen to podcasts or do a bit more reading, or?
I think I could do with reading some more books. I always set myself, every month I tell myself, you really need to read more books. And I set that 2 hours aside before bed, and then it takes 2 days and I fall out of the habit. But yeah, probably I need to do some more wider reading, I think.
Yeah, reading is, I kind of fall in and out of love with reading. I mean, it's amazing, but I have to be in a particular kind of mood to read.
Yeah.
And I know from one other podcast, there's a guy that uses this app called Blinklist. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I think
it condenses books for you to kind of digest more quickly. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but
no. Yeah, I think I did try that app once for the free trial, and then I cancelled it after the free trial because it wasn't in my budget, so I couldn't carry on with it.
There we go.
But yeah, I'm not sure. I think key points are all valuable. Again, I love a quote, so obviously you can get some value from that condensed, those little pieces of wisdom. But I don't know. I think to really understand something, it's best to read maybe the full text as best you can anyway, because obviously that author has written that for a reason, and plus
feels like a shortcut, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think so. I'd rather read the whole. I would feel a bit of a fraud if I only listened to like a 15-minute review, and then I have to pretend to everyone that I've read the book.
yeah.
And I already feel that by listening to audiobooks, I already feel that I'm cheating when I said that I've read the books. I read this amazing book. Actually, I just listened to it, but
it's just so much easier. I think the definition of words is going to be changing eventually. We'll be reading with our ears a lot more than with our eyes, I think,
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, just before this podcast, we were having some connection troubles, weren't we? And I was just thinking, like, having to connect my Bluetooth earphones and changing the microphone settings. I mean, this is going to be streamlined, I have no doubt. Give it 4 or 5 years, and it'll just be, turn on computer, record podcast. It'll just be so automated.
When the transhumanism movement fully takes off, I think it'll just be telepathically from one to the other.
Yeah. It won't be that long, I'm sure.
I don't know how we'll invite listeners into that, but
we'll see. Well, you never know what's going to happen in 2021. That might be the year.
Yeah, you never know.
So yeah, definitely like those investing fees, so management fees. That's going to be one of my biggest thing that I've learned in 2020. Sorry, and going into 2021, I think it's more for myself. Because of the uncertainty that COVID's kind of brought about, it's kind of tapping more into this business mindset. And I've started my own small business and really understanding more about how best to grow that and to decide whether it's a pipe dream or whether it's something really to develop. So I'm starting to listen to more kind of business-minded podcasts and get educated in that. It's kind of cool, but similarly to what you said with the finance thing, there's a lot to learn, and you're kind of like, I don't feel particularly educated,
Again, well, I was about to sound very probably way more intelligent than I actually am. When it comes to business, I mean, my brother and sister have been running the family business now for about fully by ourselves for about 2 years, so we've slowly taken it over off my parents.
Amazing.
And honestly, the more you do, the more mistakes you make, the more you learn. And I don't think there's any real way to jump into a business and feel comfortable. I think you've got to, and I still struggle with this as well when it comes to the other businesses that I'm interested in, like the photography side of things. I'd like to be making some money off that at some point.
Yeah.
I do have that fear of taking that first step into things and making a few mistakes. But I think you just have to, and the more you do it, the more you learn, and then it becomes second nature.
Yeah, and that's something I've already noticed. Actually, is the kind of the apprehension to kind of really get stuck in because the website's not perfect or this or that, and I think actually there is power in that inconsistency, and that's the same for finances as well. Like if you get on a plan and forget about your feelings, but if you automate things, then you will have a certain level of success. Now, that's of course going to depend on your business model and what's going on, but I think that's kind of difficult sometimes when you wake up with a so-called blank diary and all of those responsibilities are just kind of there for you to handle yourself. Then you kind of think, maybe I'll do it tomorrow or something, and that's different for you because you've got your family and you've got a fully fledged business already to run and clients to attend to and stuff. But it's gonna be an interesting year, 2021. I think there's lots of challenges on the horizon, but a big opportunity to grow as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I've no doubt you'll succeed. I'm I'm enjoying these side hustles as well that you keep posting about.
Oh man, the side hustles. They've just been some hilarious side hustles the last couple of weeks. I have to share this stuff with the listeners. So on Fiverr, I have a couple of music related gigs, but it's interesting because you advertise yourself as one thing, and people will come along and they'll just ask you to do something completely unrelated. And it always catches me off guard because I'm like, what gave you the idea that I'm the person for this job? But they get in touch. So I'm like, okay. So I think the best one was a couple of weeks ago when this guy in a band got in touch with me, and he's in like a heavy metal band. And he said every Christmas we kind of make a spoof Christmas video of one of our songs. So we'd like you to use your opera voice and to sing on our track. And I was like, really? And it's a very strange proposal. I was like, actually, like, it could be quite a lot of hard work for me. So I was like, well, I'll just say like $50 and see what he says. He was like, yeah, that's fine. I was like, so it ended up being super easy. And just kind of hammed it up and just did some opera stereotype stuff, and he was really happy with it. So I was like, boom.
Did you have any trepidation about how much to ask for?
Well, I'm getting an increasing amount of people that are writing to me to use stuff for commercial purposes, and that's a bit different. Like if someone writes to me, and one of the things I do is singing happy birthday, so happy birthday Debbie or whatever. I mean, there's only so many Debbies, and they're probably not going to send it out into the world. But if it's for something commercial, then I kind of feel like it's not very fair to charge the same rate. So I always kind of ask, is it for commercial purposes, whatever. Another strange one I got asked to do is I got asked to sing Happy Birthday in Welsh.
Oh, okay.
For Pump Blwydd Hapus, for those wondering. Yeah. For as a free downloadable tool. So again, that was like a commercial thing where people could go and download me singing Pump Blwydd Hapus, ET, for whatever their purpose is. So that was kind of weird, but yeah, the side hustles have been. It's been fun. Like I really enjoyed being creative like that, and the frustration about the side hustles sometimes is that you in your own head you kind of think that they're a hustle, not a side hustle. So you're like, oh, it'd be great if I could turn this into I could be like a happy birthday machine. You know, from 9 to 5. That's all I do. But I'm like, no, these are side hustles. Like I need to. And that's fine, but sometimes it draws you into a false sense of security, I guess, in these current times. How about you?
Have you considered live performance of a happy birthday? For instance, would you turn up at my kid's party if I asked you?
I mean, I have done that before. I have actually done that before. Yeah. I mean, it was more of an informal arrangement. But I mean, why not? My motto is if someone wants to pay the fee, I'll be there.
Yeah. That's a dangerous motto. that could get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah. And how about your side hustles? So you mentioned doing a bit of photography and stuff, but I guess it's all hands on deck, isn't it, for your business?
It is. It's difficult to manage. I think I made a big mistake at the beginning of the lockdown. I found myself through no planning or fault of my own in the middle of a brawl at Barry Island.
Right. So I remember that.
Yeah, so there were a bunch of kids that had come down from another town and a bunch of kids that had come down from a different town, and they got into it for some reason. And I happened to get out of my car at the time because I was going to photograph something else. And it was very fortuitous because I just happened to snap away at this kid getting arrested. So I emailed Wales Online and I asked them if they wanted to use the photos. They said yes, that was great, and they used them for free and all of that. And then I got an email the next morning from the BBC who said, we've seen your photos. Could we pay you to use them in perpetuity? So great. I thought this is fantastic. I panicked and I went away and I did a bit of research of how much should I charge for this kind of thing. And by the time I replied, it was too late. And they'd taken the offer off the table. So That's why I asked, like, how do you feel about deciding what to charge? Because I was tempted to say like £150, but it was only 3 images, and you don't want to ask too much and then them tell you. But again, maybe that's one of the mistakes you've got to make in business is,
I think the more the more you negotiate, the more you learn. But I think as a general rule, you by saying £150, I think that would be perfectly reasonable, first of all. And if it was outrageously high, then they could say, oh, well, how about 75 quid? And
yes.
So it's always best to start from a higher place rather than kind of undercutting yourself immediately.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are scared to do that. I was watching a clip earlier on about Jordan Peterson, actually. He was talking about salary negotiation, and you have to, if you are an agreeable person, you have to put those agreeable qualities to one side, and it's a really hard thing to do if you like pleasing people.
It is. I think I tend to be an agreeable person, and
Yeah,
I'll be honest. The best thing about having those photos printed on the front of the South Wales Echo was just the fact that people had seen them. For me, I was perfectly happy to give them away for free as long as that people had seen it. That's something I need to work on when it comes to, to increasing side hustle ideas, and I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it.
Yeah, I mean, with something like Fiverr, so for the listeners, Fiverr is a freelance platform, and you can put your work on there, and people can contact you from all around the world, and the kind of basic package starts from $5, hence the name, and it's kind of like an Airbnb model. So for all of the happy birthday stuff, all of the side hustles, I had to start at the very beginning, charging just like the minimum amount, hoping that people would order, hoping that they would leave reviews. And as you do, more people see you, and you can then start to change your pricing a little bit. So the pricing structure has changed as the demand has grown, and just finding that sweet spot, I think, about what's reasonable for the customer, I guess. But also, guys in the States, I mean, they like this kind of stuff a lot. I have a lot of orders from the US, and they tip very well.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, you keep it up. It'll be your main hustle eventually, I'm sure.
I mean, that would be great. Not gonna lie.
Full-time Welsh happy birthday.
Oh, I mean, that's pretty niche, isn't it? Oh gosh. And the YouTube stuff. Now, I saw you do I think it was a video, right? Yeah, it was a video. It must have been about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and you were talking about health kick. I mean, this is very apt as well for a discussing in early January. I mean, I've been really struggling in the lockdown. Now, the first lockdown, I had it down to a T. I was doing my ADF, alternate day fasting, going out for a walk every day, and somehow this kind of second experience has just it's gone all a bit haywire. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about the fasting stuff. Are you going to pick it back up in January, maybe after a Christmas indulgence?
I was dreading this question. Yeah. So it was about. I plan on making maybe a little YouTube series about this because I've had, I would say, quite an interesting health journey, with an awakening and then a falling back to sleep, and now it's time to wake up again.
I mean, everyone falls back to sleep at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it was about 3 weeks ago I decided that I'd get back into, because I've been intermittent fasting for about 6 years. I started doing, it wasn't alternate day fasting, it was like the 5-2 method. So for the
Michael
2 days
Mosley,
a week, 2 days a week, you just restrict your calories down to I think it was 600 for a man of my age. And then the rest of the time you eat what you want, which is the dangerous part of that, I think. Because I would eat what I want, and it didn't really have great results. But then I developed onto like an intermittent fasting of 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating each day, and I essentially just skip breakfast. But recently I think my health has been so dire that I needed to do something drastic, so I looked into the 1 meal a day. I did it for oh god, accountability is a bitch, isn't it?
It is. I mean, OMAD, 1 meal a day. I mean, I find OMAD probably the most challenging. I would rather do 18 hours or 36 or 40 hours than OMAD.
Really?
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why it is, and that's what I found with my fasting routine as well. Is that sometimes what works for you one week, the next week, you're just like, oh no, I just don't want to do it.
That's true. Yeah. I think when I'm, you know, if I was doing one meal a day, when I'm getting near to that time to eat that meal, I feel the best. You know, mentally, physically, I feel like I've accomplished something. It's a big accomplishment to go without food for the whole day. And I know you've done some longer fasts, haven't you?
Yeah, so I did one last week. The longest I've gone is almost 60 hours, which you should never do without doctor's advice. So I'm not advising anyone does a long extended fast, but I really like this guy Jason Fung, who's he talks a lot about fasting on YouTube, and I just think he hits the nail on the head a lot, and I just like he's got a great sense of humor as well. Like he talks about it from a financial aspect as well. And he said, I got these people writing to me from the Philippines, from these impoverished countries. He's like, I can't afford diet supplements, and I can't. He's like, the greatest way to control your weight is just don't eat. And he just makes it sound so easy. But some days it is super easy. You're just like, right, I'm not eating now. Boom.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow, food. And then other days you're kind of, your tummy's a bit rumbling and you have to battle more with the mental side of it.
I mean, well, for me, like specifically in my case, when I first started the intermittent fasting, it this is gonna sound so contrived, but linking it back to when I first got into saving and investing, the fact that I just cut that out of my options. I didn't eat breakfast anymore. It helped me get control of that eating process, and then from there I learned more and more and more, and eventually ended up developing over time a pretty healthy lifestyle. Brilliant. So it is a little bit like the robo investing. Once they say set it and forget it. Once you set it, and it works itself. Cutting out that breakfast option, it made the world of difference. But the one meal a day is a bit different because I my experience isn't in that long a period without food, but I did it. Again, I hate accountability. I did it and I stuck with it for a good week, and I had a really great experience that week. But then something happened. One day it threw me off, and I put something in my mouth that that I shouldn't have. Earlier than my fast time was up. And that sort of threw me off a little bit. So
but I mean, somehow then you fall into this all or nothing mentality, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same with when people are speaking about managing their debts and stuff. So if you have one little slip up, I may as well stick another load on the credit card. And I'm so guilty of that because rather than thinking of life as a journey and every day being part of the puzzle and you're figuring things out, somehow we put pressure on ourselves to say, right, well, by next week I've got to have everything figured out, and it's got to be I've got to be 100% consistent. So I think that going into January 2021, that's going to be my kind of reminder of myself in all aspects of life. Life is a journey. Find joy in those small steps, and if you screw up, learn something from it and don't just kind of completely relapse. Learn something from it and move on, and hopefully move towards your goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can.
It's more about again enjoying the process rather than needing a specific outcome. Because if you fall in love with the process of doing it, then a little slip up, it reminds you that you enjoy being that you enjoy the strictness of it.
Definitely.
And then you don't need an outcome. And I tend to find that when you forget about trying to chase that need for that specific outcome, that's when the outcome is more likely to present itself.
Definitely. Yeah. What are your thoughts in general about the kind of January, what do they call them? January New Year's resolutions. So, setting yourself those goals and kind of, I always felt it was a little bit of nonsense, but what do you think about it?
Well, again, I do think that you tend to get a lot of people who think that the beginning of the year is a new start and new year, new me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen overnight. You know, you don't just wake up after December 31st with a hangover and think, this is it now, this is me. I think it honestly really depends on where you are personally with your mentality. So for me, the 1st of September is often more of a fresh start for me because that's the start of the school term here.
Right.
So when the kids
Yeah,
go back to
yeah.
school, that signals a whole new intake of children into my business because we cater for the school children. So that tends to be a fresh start period. But I think it's useful to maybe have a date to draw a line under any bad habits. But again, it doesn't always stick.
It's kind of arbitrary, isn't it? Like, it could be any day. And I think one of the great things about January 1st is you can say, right, fresh page, new start, doing it. But I think, if that happens to be on the 3rd or the 5th, that's absolutely fine as well. So, keep going, I think, is my motto.
Picking that arbitrary date as well also gives you the option to do a lot of damage up until that time.
That's very true.
I think this was something we talked about the first time we spoke, was when I first got interested in, the debt-free idea and saving and investing. I was listening to Dave Ramsey a lot, and I was hearing stories of all these people in the States who had racked up a ton of debt, and then they were paying it off, and then they were successful. And I got it in my head that, well, I haven't got that much debt, so maybe I could rack up a little bit more before I start, because these people are doing it. Why can't I? So I do think that future date of where you say, this is the day that I'm going to get serious, it does leave you open for a little bit of mishaps,
Totally.
I've certainly fallen for that with regards to like diet and lifestyle as well.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's been a turbulent couple of months, and I definitely need to trim down. I've definitely put on a bit of lockdown timber.
Yeah.
And
you
with
look
the nights,
fantastic.
Oh, well, thank you. I think, with the nights drawing in and it getting a little bit colder, it's harder to get out, and with the restrictions. But you got to make of it what you will. And I think I'll definitely take my running shoes if I'm able to go back to Wales for Christmas, since we're. What is it today? It's the 16th of December. That's when we're recording this podcast. I'm hoping to take my running shoes back with me, do a bit of sport if I'm able to go back to Wales, a bit of running and stuff, and carry those good habits, both financial and personal, into 2021.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, we'll see. I was gonna ask you one more question. I forgot what it was now. Damn. Oh, yeah. Can you give us a little bit of an update about what's going on with your housing situation? So, all your money box, you're famous on YouTube for your money box reviews and your LISA, which is it's a kind of tax invested account that can be used for property. So, what's the update there?
Well, famous on YouTube, I will accept that. Even though it came with the allegation of being called the most boring man in the world at one point.
Oh, come on.
But I didn't take that to heart. It was fine. So we've had so many updates recently about what we're going to do with this property that we're in. Initially, the plan was to save up to get a mortgage. Mm-hmm. Then we switched our idea because... it's a bit of a strange situation, and I'm very, very fortunate that I live in a building that my parents own, so we pay them rent.
Right.
So then we changed the plan to perhaps, instead of getting a mortgage and paying them off in one lump sum, we'd have like a rent to buy agreement by which we'll just pay rent over the next 10, 15 years, and we'll have paid off the amount they want. Mm-hmm. So that was the most recent plan that we had. So we'd actually saved up... about £5,000 cash to do some internal work to make the space a bit bigger.
Right.
So that's where we are currently. So at the moment, my lifetime ISA I'm looking more of as a retirement account. So
okay, great.
Still funding it, but not as much as I was, because at the moment we're ploughing cash into the the accounts that we're going to use to do the renovations that we need.
Yeah. Well, it's a good reminder for anyone that's living in a property. Always look at the place that you're already in, isn't it, and see if you can make some changes, because that will save you a lot of stress, I guess. And moving houses is expensive actually as well, so you kind of don't incur those costs and maximize the space of where you already are.
Yeah, but I do want to stress that I am in an extremely fortunate position, and I understand that a lot of people aren't in this position. People who are renting off, people that aren't their parents, essentially, maybe don't have that luxury to have one of these agreements in place. So I am taking full advantage of this good fortune that I found myself in.
Amazing, fantastic, man.
Sean's my girlfriend. Our income isn't fantastic. We're not making millions by any stretch of the imagination. But we think we've come up with a plan that suits us both, and we're happy to stay where we are for the long term. It has been a bit of a bachelor pad for the last 7 years. So we're doing a bit of work now to make it more homely and eventually turn it into a family home,
Fantastic. Do you know, that's one thing that I definitely don't have an eye for, is making things homely. I remember my now fiance walked into my apartment and she's like, it's very, it looks quite unlived in. I was like, yeah, it's, magnolia on the walls and one picture, and that's all I need.
Exactly. I've been accused of the same thing. But are you happy for her to take the reins?
Very much. I can appreciate when I see something that's very well organized, and the color coordination and the comfort. I'm like, this is great, but I can't construct that myself.
Yeah, that's okay. We're having quite a few little discussions, I'll say, about what will look good where. So it's an interesting process, like actually developing a home with somebody else in mind.
Yeah.
Do you live alone or do you live
together?
No,
I don't. We don't live together, but we will be soon. So that's going to be a big change in 2021 as well. Is getting married, moving maybe to another part of the country. Who knows? Like there's so many changes on the horizon, but very exciting changes. So hopefully then by 2022, I'll listen back to this and say, oh, what were you worrying about, man? It all worked out just fine.
Yeah, well, this is one of the things, again, I'm sort of keeping a little diary on YouTube of the progress that we're making and the process that we go through. Because there's so many things that you don't realise. There's so many hurdles you don't anticipate. And I just figure if I can speak about them honestly, because I will be the first to tell you I'm not an expert in anything. Probably not even my own opinion at times. But yeah, just documenting this kind of thing, I think it's helpful for other people to see,
Yeah, definitely. That's what I've loved about, well, for me, 2020, the opportunity to start this podcast and all of the other ventures. But I've particularly loved doing the podcast interviews. It's just been so interesting to have the insight from all the other people. And I think for the listeners, it's just like being a fly on the wall. You just get an opportunity to listen in to the conversation. I think that's so cool. And I know a lot of other podcasts, they're very, very technically focused or very high level, and that's not me at all. I love the conversational style, and that's why I thought you were the perfect person to kind of review the year with, because we had such a great chat last time.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, again, we've had a good chat this time as well.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, I hope this has been an encouragement to the listeners. So drawing a line under 2020 and the horrendous coronavirus, and hopefully onwards and upwards. As I say, onto better things, and hopefully, a fantastic financial future.
Have you got anything specific next year that you'd like to achieve? I know you've mentioned getting married and getting a house, potentially a move.
That's a good question, actually. I think one of my goals is to still stick to my automation. So keep paying, despite of COVID, keep paying into the pension, and to really just keep going with investing into the market. And the the next kind of bigger picture, so outside of 2021, maybe moving on to 2022, is the question then, is home ownership an important factor? Is it better to rent, or is it better to keep to buy? And to, well, if you rent, you keep that money in the market and you let it grow. And I'm kind of conflicted about that, but circumstantially, I'm not able to buy due to being self-employed at the moment. And it's getting much, much more difficult for self-employed people to get mortgages, which so we'll see. But I think, well, I don't want to say anything yet, but I just see where it leads.
Okay.
I just stick to the plan and see how it goes. I think that's what I'm hoping to do. Yeah.
Perfect. Yep. That sounds good.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast.
It was a pleasure.
And all being well, we'll do this again in at the end of 2021, going on to 2022.
Yeah. I'll be a lot slimmer and a lot more muscular by then, I'm sure.
Me too.
Right, yeah, it was very good to talk to you. Merry Christmas. I hope you have a good one.
Thanks, man. Yeah. Merry Christmas too.
And hopefully the restrictions won't cause too much problems and you'll be able to get back down to Wales if that's what you're planning.
Oh, I'm really hoping so, man. It's complicated. I mean, there's so many variables. We'll do our best to make it happen. And when I pass Barry Island, or I don't really pass Barry Island, when I pass Cardiff, I'll be thinking of you.
Yeah, by all means, just give me a wave. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, excellent. Barry, when I was thinking about just dabbling on Rightmove and stuff, I typed in Barry Island. I was like, this could, it's by the sea and it's near Cardiff and it's affordable. It's like, so you never know, it might be on the horizons one day.
I mean, well, Barry's undergone quite a lot of development lately, and they've started pumping some money into entertainment. So we've actually got, there's a new place open called the Good Sheds, which I have done a video on previously about what's the word? Frictionless payments.
Oh yeah.
Because down there they require everything to be done via your phone. You order on the phone, you pay on the phone, they bring it to the table. But they've pumped a lot of money into that. It's actually a decent place. So yeah, Barry's up and coming, I think.
It's on the up. Yeah. I'm gonna have to check it out. You never know.
Oh, good.
But we'll see. But thank you so much for doing this, man. I think it'll be a really good episode, and have a good Christmas. I hope you get to go to that meal with your folks. That'll be good, won't it?
Oh, come hell or high water, I will be there. Even if I have to sit in the garden, my dad's stuffing is worth it.
Good, man.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Good to talk to you.
All right, nice, man.
Thank you for watching. I hope that you got something from this video. You can find my website at www.ollyrosaphoto.com. You can follow me on Instagram at ollyrosaphoto, Twitter at ollyrossa. Again, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll speak to you next time.